All right. You ready to just jump into it?
Yeah, I'd say we should. Misty Boys, Shards and Shenanigans, salute.
Are you ready for a snack?
Oh, dude, I'm starving. Let's start
Dude,
with a
this is a
snack.
it's a small snack.
Yeah, it's for sure. It's the definition of a snack.
Yeah, that's a
Like
good, yeah,
I'd say some of them. We were getting some juicy ones, and he's like, hey now,
yeah,
this is a snack. Remember?
yeah, yeah. He stopped putting out the spread. And,
Yeah, right. Yeah, now we're
yeah,
back to the carrot sticks.
yes. So, of course, we're talking here, chapter 8 of Mistborn. Um, Wrapping up the end of part 1. If you remember from the first episodes or when you're reading the book, part 1 is all about the survivor of Hathsin, which we now know
Survivor.
is Kelsier. And so chapter 8 is kind of finishing out this part 1, leading us into part 2 of the book. So we'll go ahead and just jump in with the snack here at the beginning, in quotes, which
Hmm.
makes me kind of feel like it is a almost like a legend or something that's written down in lore. This like the statement. Um, and I'll just go ahead and read it just because it's so short. But he shall
Yeah.
defend their ways, yet shall violate them. He will be their savior, yet they shall call him a heretic. His name shall be Discord, yet they shall love him for it. So, definitely not making a lot of sense here. Don't know what's going on. I mean, I don't know if this is the Lord Ruler still who, because obviously, you know, everything we've heard in these snacks leading up to this point has kind of been leading to who I thought was the Lord Ruler saving the people. And then, but here it's like, but they're gonna call you a heretic and they're gonna like hate you for it, kind of. And
Yeah.
so, did that happen? And that's where we're at now, where all these ska maybe were saved. The whole world was saved by him at one point, and they do call him a heretic and um, all kinds of. So I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah, I agree. It is interesting, and a good call out on the quotes. I just kind of flip back and look at some of the other ones, and you don't really see that style
Right.
for the majority of, if not all of them. But I just was double checking, and I like that you picked up on that. Yeah, who knows? I guess we'll have to read and find out.
Yes, Rapho.
Rafa.
So jumping into the main meal here. Last chapter we ended with Vin trying to basically fly up onto the wall, jump up onto the wall, and she was getting ready to. And here we see starting out with her shooting up into the air. Um, she definitely is panicking as she gets up there and is pushing off of the coin below her, the ingot. She slows down, realizes she's kind of floating in the air. Kelsier's super casual, just standing on the top of the wall, is like, I've always liked it. The view from up here, pretty good. And she's like, help, bitch. Like,
I'm gonna
and
die.
so he kind of tries to put her at ease, but she's definitely panicking. But we learn here, that if you just kind of let your body do its thing, your body's going to balance itself. Let that inner ear work for you, and as long as you're kind of directly over that ingot or whatever you're pushing against, you should pretty much stay pretty balanced. You're going to stay stable, and um, but if you move too much to one side, you're going to fly off at an angle, something like that. So that's pretty cool, and some good info about like how this is all working out. Again, Kelsier's like, I hope you aren't afraid of heights. So it's like too late for that, buddy. Thanks.
Yeah.
Um, just some more comic relief there from Kelsier, and Vin gets pulled in. Kelsier, basically tugs on her belt. Um, and gets her pulled in, wrapped into or onto the top of the wall. And then he's like, all right, we're going back down the other side. So, up and over kind of. And Finn's not about it. She's not loving the idea of going outside of the city, outside of the walls, especially at
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
Um, and we get some more info here a little bit kind of, and I think we kind of heard about this in the past couple chapters when we're learning about Vin. She has been to other cities before. Her and her brother had hopped around. Um, but we'll find out here in a little bit that, that wasn't an uncommon thing that um, they would. move around, usually staying in one place no more than a year at a time, and then kind of jumping ship and going to the next city. So she's not unfamiliar with going out, but she's definitely not comfortable with doing it at night. And so Kelsier's trying to get her to jump down, and he kind of explains how to do it. He goes down, and he's like, "You got to, because those guards are coming down the wall right there." And she looks, and there's some guards, and she's like, "Fuck!" So she goes ahead and makes the leap. Starts falling. Uses the pushes, but she's not on top of her ingot like he told her she needed to be. She's off to the side a little bit, and she launches herself out at an angle. She starts panicking. She pulls on it. Now it's flying towards her. All kinds of bad stuff's happening until Kelsier basically snatches her out of the air, gently lowers her down. My favorite thought while all this is happening, she just has the thought, "I'm dead."
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, that's it. I'm dead."
I'm dead.
So once she's on the ground, Kelsier again was like, "Well, that's fun. That was fun." Kind of a sassy guy, we're learning, and
Oh yeah.
she is. I thought this was cool. Once she got on the ground, she's obviously like kind of dizzy and a little disoriented, and she uses her pewter and burns that to kind of steady her nerves, which was really cool. Um, Definitely like that, and um, we learned something about the earrings because they're talking about jewelry and what to carry on their body, what not to carry on their body, and if metal is inside of you, it can't be used to push or pull somebody, and so the small earrings that she's got is fine.
Yeah.
And kind of makes sense when he explains it that like they can't just pull the metal that you're drinking in these vials out of you,
Out of your
like,
body.
rip them out of your stomach.
Right. Which is kind of like a thought, you could have had, right? Like,
Yeah,
where does it draw
I never
the
would have
line?
thought that.
No, yeah. I mean, they're drinking the metal flakes and stuff, at some point. You're like, doesn't seem safe. If people
No,
can just
yeah, for
pull
sure.
and push on things.
Yeah. I definitely had a thought about that, so it's kind of cool that they explain that. And he does kind of bring up that like these earrings that she's got in could be used as like a source of power in an emergency, so they're like might not be a bad thing to keep.
Yeah.
So she goes out and keeps them on, and then next thing you know, they're just walking. They're walking through kind of the lowlands around the city through the brush, and she doesn't really understand where they're going. Oh yeah, this is where we talked about how Reen was trying to move, kind of from city to city every year. He always kept moving, always on the run, like he's running from something, which I think is kind of a little nod of the hat to maybe Reen's past and what was he actually running from,
Right. Yeah.
which
Sure.
I'm sure we'll talk about in the future. So we also have Vin talking about or thinking about how she had heard tales of what goes around in the night, basically, and what's lurking in the mists. Which we're gonna quickly learn here that she's hearing some things kind of around them as they're walking, and she's like, "What is this? What is this noise? I think we're being followed. I think something's out there." And Kelsier's like, "Oh yeah, that. Yeah, it's a mist wraith." And she's like, "Well, okay, that's not just something casual. Like,
They're real?
and yeah, they're real." And he's like, "Yeah, of course.
Like
Like, where do you think all the stories come from?" Yeah,
So
he's like, "You want to go look at it?"
Yeah, I love it. What a good
And so next thing you know, he turns around, climbs the next, the hill behind them, kind of crouches down, and is like, "All right, basically there it is." And he explains that these mist wraiths, their hearing isn't good, that they mostly rely on their smell and taste, which is super accurate, and that they're pretty harmless creatures in the sense that they are kind of scavengers or bottom feeders. Like, they aren't really hunting people; they're just kind of sucking up, and that's why they're following them, hoping that maybe they'll drop some food or drop something that they can eat. And Vin can't really see it. Kelsier points it out to her, and it's basically almost like a hill, 10 feet tall, twice as long, and it's kind of shuffling forward. And then, as Kelsier has Vin flare her tin, so she can kind of see this thing better. She starts to see all these pretty horrific features of it, where it has all of these basically limbs and heads sticking
Yeah.
out that are in the shape of different animals. So hooves and human hands, human's feet, antlers,
Dozens
you name
upon
it.
dozens of limbs.
Yeah,
I
pretty
love
pretty
it.
creepy.
Yeah.
And it's almost like walking forward on some of these limbs like a centipede, but other limbs are like up on the top of it, just kind of
Yeah.
hanging out all
Not even
in weird,
functional.
unnatural fashion. Yeah,
Yeah.
just hanging. And so definitely a very strange creature. Vin counts 6 heads
Yeah.
of all shapes. There's a human skull, there's a horse head, there's a deer, um, and she's getting ready to throw up. And Kelsier explains that mist wraiths are these malleable creatures. They have these bodies that can absorb the
Mm.
skeletal structure of
Hmm.
other animals that they come across, and they kind of their ability. So to I guess, for lack of a better term, is to, once they come across something like that, almost I feel like absorb it, and
Hmm.
then they can recreate the muscles and organs and mimic those, or they will chuck out bones they don't need or create bones that they do need to kind of connect it all. And such an odd what an odd idea. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah. It's really horror. It's good, like almost horror. It's really cool.
so when they usually are finding corpses, they just kind of digest it, digest the muscles, digest the organs, and then they can create the duplicate there, and it basically recreate it somewhere in or on their body, and
Hmm.
it kind of forms this big mass like they're seeing now. So it's definitely very strange. Um, Vin asks, "Are they intelligent?" We see here that like this one's young, so it's got more instincts than intelligence, in that they don't really um, eat people or anything like that. They're not really dangerous.
Like
That the
scavengers.
the reason that there's a human attached, that it probably found like a human corpse somewhere,
Right.
that it's no one's really seen or heard of these attacking people. Um, and Alamancers know about them, but ordinary people, especially Ska, like they fear them. They hear stories, but they don't really even know what they are. They've never seen them. It's just kind of interesting. But because they aren't really that dangerous, and they're kind of these big lumbering oafs, like that's kind of why people leave them alone. Like if you just kind of leave them alone, nothing's gonna happen to you. But we do get one quick note that the high nobility have devised their own uses for the creatures.
Mm.
So I'm sure we'll see that in the future. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Good
and
catch. Good catch.
so we're circling around the city, and the next thing you know, we're around it to the Imperial High Road, and there is a carriage waiting on the road, and someone is hanging out by the carriage waiting for them, and they come up, and Kelsier says, and I'm not gonna, you'll have to correct me on this pronunciation. Ho Sazed.
Sazed. Sazed.
Sazed. Okay.
Yeah. Sazed.
Sazed.
Yeah, I know it says its name. Yeah, I know this character. Well, you're about to get to know him.
So he is driving this carriage for them, and we very quickly learn that he is a terraceman, which we've, in our snacks primarily, we have
I
heard
don't,
of
I don't
terracemen
think
and
we met
understand
any
that
yet.
they're from the. No, I don't think so either. But from this area, Terrace, it's in the
Hmm.
mountains to the north. At least in the context of the snacks, a lot of them are guides or are almost like
Pac-Man,
Sherpas. I think we
Sherpa.
used, yeah.
Yeah, in the
And
snacks for
so
sure. That's how they are.
Um, and so I like how here Kelsier, he's Sazed, but Kelsier calls him Saze, and like there's a nickname for
Yeah.
everybody, like
Yep.
Ham,
Yep.
Dachshund, Dox. Um,
Exactly. Calls him Says.
so
That's 100% right. Yeah, he's very familiar. He
yeah,
lets
they're
himself be
they're
familiar.
familiar. And so Vin recognizes him as a terraceman.
Hmm.
Uh, so but we learn here that she has never really met one, but clearly his appearance is something that's been talked about or is taught or is some kind of lore, because he's got these earlobes that are stretched out. He's got studs in his ears all around the perimeter of his ears. He's got these lavish robes,
Colorful
and
robes.
specifically colorful robes of a terrace steward. And so I don't know if
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
significant to him in some kind of way, but
Yep.
you know,
It is.
and so she talks about not knowing any terracemen, but that she knows that the high nobility prefer terracemen, stewards, and attendants. So, with all that being said, this terraceman, Sazed,
Yeah.
Sazed
You did great with
is
the says. That was perfect.
he is basically a nobility attendant. I don't like.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a better term. Like, I would say butler is like a good almost.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's similar. Butler and Stewart, I think, are very similar. In some ways, yeah. Just like attendant, I think is also fine. All app.
Nice.
And all words that he uses right here, almost for Butler.
Yeah, that's true. So we find out they're going to Felice, which we know from obviously from reading on here, but from our past readings that this is where Kelsier has set up the imposter Lord Renault as like where he's kind of setting up his new kind of base camp to infiltrate the high nobility here. So they climb into the carriage, and next thing you know, they're on their way. In the carriage, Kelsier's is critically analyzing Vin and her mannerisms and things she's doing. She's seated in the seat. She's got her legs tucked up underneath her. She's kind of hiding in the Mistborn cloak that she's wearing. Everything's completely covered, and she's kind of like shying away from him and from life in general. She's trying to kind of be as small as she can be, not trying to be recognized, essentially. And he talks about how, she is brave. Like when Kelsier was going through his own training with Gimel.
Yeah, the Gimel reference.
Gimel had to push him off the wall to get him to go, and Vin just went for it. So,
right.
He's definitely impressed, but he is again noting like these, I don't almost want to call them flaws, but definitely these like scars of her character and her, her emotional state and her thoughts about the world that he's trying to like overcome. So he's just commenting on those here.
Yeah.
And
right.
She brings up Marsh, and is like, oh, you guys aren't that close. And then she's like, so how often did he beat you?
Yeah, I know. Oh, this is sad. Yeah, poor Vin.
I know. I feel so bad. And Kelsey's like, oh, like he didn't beat me.
Yeah, I know.
And she's like, well, so you stopped him then for beating you? Like, that's why he doesn't like you? Like, how'd you escape? Like, were you stronger than him? Did you run away? And like, he's like, Vin, like he never even tried to beat me. Like we argued, but we never wanted to hurt one another. And like Vin's in her eyes, he like, he can see that she doesn't believe him.
Yeah.
Like, what he's telling her. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, and that's where he's like, what a life, talking about Vin, and clearly the things that she's been through, the trials and tribulations of her life to get to where she is now, to even have those thoughts immediately upon analyzing Kelsier and Marsh,
Right.
And so we get a little tidbit about Kelsier and Marsh's mother.
Yeah.
And so here his mother has basically been resourceful. He said that his mother was the mistress, specifically of a high nobleman. And she basically hid the fact that she was Ska. So I think that kind of answers some questions for me. So earlier, when we were first learning of who the Ska were, we didn't get a lot of description of them as opposed to the nobility as far as their actual physical characteristics. And so I had a lot of questions about like, Well, are they even of the same?
like race.
Like, are they
Yeah, I
the same
remember.
animals
Yeah,
or
you
race?
had
Like, are
this
they some kind of
species,
alien? Like
right?
species? Yeah. And
Yeah,
then okay, then we kind of were like, okay, we think they're probably the same, at least race or species because we know that there's mixed breeds and people can have
right.
ska like just like Kelsier is a mixed breed between a noble person and a ska. And so then my next idea or thought is like, okay, well, do they look different in some kind of way?
Mm.
Like, or is their skin color different? Or their head shape different? Something where it's still the same species, but just a different race
Well,
of
like
that
almost like
species. Or
Sazed looks a lot different,
yes,
than everybody else
exactly.
around there, but he's from Terrace, and so
Yeah,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
it's and so now with the fact that she was able to hide that she was a ska from the nobleman
Right,
makes me feel like okay that they're all pretty much look pretty identical. The
it's like a
only thing that
racist
is
thing.
keeping them down is like the class system like the or
Yeah.
like the
Oh yeah.
caste.
Yeah.
It's
No.
like
No. Yeah. That's a better word for it. It's like a caste or not racist, but essentially just like treating them like socioeconomically like serfs. I always think ska and serf for me is like the 1-to-1. Like old
so
feudal
what's
terms.
use so where's the serf term come from because I don't know if I've heard that one.
Yeah, it's an old medieval, um, maybe like 11, 1200s, where in feudal times the serfs were these tenants that like it really reminds me of the way that you rent your ska to like different places, and they don't really own anything. They just like work and pay tribute to the lord of the area they're in. So it comes from the feudal times. Um, and to me, like it's like I just really relate, yeah, ska to serfdom in my mind. Yep.
Nice,
Like Eastern
that's good.
Europe and Northern Europe, lots of serfs.
So basically, Kelsier and Marsh grew up privileged because while they're illegitimate children of this nobleman, like they still um, were clearly taken care of as the mistress's kids and his kids until father finds out that there's that mom's a ska. Now he's got these half ska off breed um, kids and so things kind of clearly turn south.
Yeah,
Um,
it just kind of cuts off right there. It's like,
yeah,
ooh,
I'm sure we'll get some more tidbits on their past.
right.
So Vin, again, curious as far as why are these people helping me? What's in it for them? How are they going to hurt me? She's like, why did you even teach me these things? All about allomancy. And Kelsier's like, well, I promised you, like that's why. And she says, well, but now I know them and I could just run away. And like, what are you gonna do? Kelsier's like, nothing, Vin. And so we get this whole like, if you want to go, like,
Right.
just go. And I guess that's a little further here, but it's definitely leading up to that.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. Yeah, we're leading into it.
Kelsier's like, I'm not trying to trick you. Like, I'm gonna, she has concerns because at first it was like, okay, there's these 8 medals, and he's only teaching me these 6 because he wanted to wait on the pushing and pulling the steel and iron because they're tricky. And she was like, okay, those are the most powerful ones. Like he's not going to teach me those. Like those are the ones he's going to hold back. And then once she learned all 8, she's like, well, I heard that you talked about these 2 other special medals, and like you're not going to teach me those. Like, and he's like, yeah, I mean, I'll teach you them. Like we can't like it's not about not teaching you. It's just like you need to learn this stuff first. Like
Yeah, right.
it's baby steps. Like
Right.
um, Kelsey's like, I'll teach you once we get to Felice. Like it's fine. I'm not trying to trick you. Like my crew, we trust each other. We rely on each other. And Vin's like, well, yeah, maybe, except one person. And the betrayal that sent you to the pits. And Kelsey,
Ah,
he wasn't expecting this, and he doesn't know where she heard that from. And Vin kind of doesn't give him much about it. And he's like, that's not something that is worth talking about. And Vin's like, yeah, but there was a traitor in your group, kind of trying to prove her point that like maybe he or other people that they're with can't be trusted. And
Right.
Kelsier's like, we don't know for certain that's what's going on. Um, but he just reiterates, like, we rely on trust. And he's like, fine, let's turn around. Like, let's go back to Luthadel. I'll drop you off. And she's like, I don't have enough money. And he just quickly, 3,000 boxings, pulls it out, the money that he took from Cayman, throws it to her. Like, you earned all this anyway. Like, everything you did for Cayman's what kind of made him so successful. So take your money. We'll take you back to Luthadel. Like, if you're not going to trust me and you're not going to be in this with us, then you have no place on this team. And so, he says, like, hey, go ahead, go ahead, turn this thing around. We're going back to Luthadel. And Vin's kind of quiet about this, and doesn't really say much. But she's like, your plan's crazy, and you can't defeat the Final Empire. And the Lord Ruler, she keeps coming up with all these like
Yeah.
reasons that this isn't gonna work.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I mean, maybe, but you trusted me to jump off that wall, so you're gonna have to trust me here too.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like the trust, and she finally kind of grabs the bag of coins, hides it underneath her cloak, and like, I'm gonna stay, but not because I trust you, just because I want to see what happens with all this.
Yeah.
And Kelsier's like, when he's looking at her when she's saying this, he's like, yep, that's exactly how she feels. She's being honest here when she says that. Like,
Right.
she doesn't trust me, and she does want to see what's going to happen here. So we jump forward, and we are now in Felice. They clearly had turned around again once she decided to stay. Felice is a less crowded, cleaner town. Most of the surrounding cities of Luthadel, like these kind of suburbs, are cleaner, less crowded, and specifically less strict in the observance of imperial laws. So it sounds like the nobility like to have these like second, third, fourth, however many homes, these manors, villas to hang out, get out of the city, get some fresher air. I wouldn't say it's fresh air because of all the ash and stuff, but
yeah, good point.
Definitely not as crowded as Luthadel. I thought it was kind of interesting that Kelsier talks about how this city should be beautiful, and Vin is like, well, it is, because we get the description of like there's some trees lining these avenues and these very nice villas and things like that. And Kelsier talks about how like the homes, they're still stained black, the soil still doesn't grow anything, and that the trees like they're growing these brown leaves. And Vin's like, well, of course they're brown, they're trees grow brown leaves. And like, what color would they? And Kelsier's like, well, green. Everything should be green. And like, clearly Vin's never seen a green like plant or a tree that has green leaves or bushes. Like, everything is dead in this world, like dead or dying, or like it just
barely surviving, which just definitely feels like, it's almost like the world is congruent with the plight of the sky.
Oh, for sure. So get some more lessons about allomancy. So Vin needs to burn away any unused metals that she's got, like that she's downed into her system by the end of the night. Basically, if she sleeps with them and then starts to digest them, like, bad things could happen. Never try to burn a metal that isn't one of the 10. So now he's referencing 10 instead of 8. He's bumped it up from the basic to kind of this bigger group of 10. Like, if impure metals and alloys are going to make her sick, like, burning something that's not even part of this group is going to kill you. So, like, don't do that. And so, next thing you know, they are there. They're at Mansion Renault, very, very newly purchased. And they hop out, go inside. And as they're going up to the steps, Lord Renault comes out. He's hanging out. They've got Ska servants hanging around. We get the description of this Lord Renault, which we know from that initial meeting in Cayman's kind of lair that this is technically the Lord Renault. However, something has been done to him, and it is something that Breeze was very excited about being like, "Whoa, I can't believe you did that to him, Kelsey," or we didn't get what that was, like what kind of
No.
scheme or plan was going on, because they were kind of like, did you kill him? And they kind of tease it out that like he didn't kill him, but maybe something else that was worse than killing him. And so obviously, how do you get someone who's this lord, this nobility, clearly doesn't want a part of this plan to now just completely work for you and like be on your
Yeah.
side? So clearly
Right.
there's some tricks going on here. And
Oh
so we
yeah.
get the description of him of, he's thin and aging, he's got spectacles on, he's got gray mustache, um, and he is very, very dignified, basically. Um, and Finn's kind of struck like, oh, this guy really knows what he's doing,
It's an
thinking that like, oh yeah,
impersonator.
he's just an impersonator,
Right.
but it really is him, kind of in a weird way, I think. So, how much of that is coming through whatever this thing that's happening with him, I don't know.
Right. Well,
Um,
because the Kelsier said there is like no way you could distinguish him to be different. Like he looks the same. Was like what he stressed, and then they kind of didn't really tell you anything else.
yeah. So we get inside. They want basically Kelsier's like, let's get some food, and very quickly, Kelsier and Renault are gonna skedaddle off to do their own thing and like talk in private, which Vin's kind of suspicious of.
Right.
But she does notice once they're inside how clean everything is. There's no ash anywhere. The walls are actually white.
Hmm.
It's taking clearly must take a lot of people a lot of time to kind of keep this in this condition. And it almost takes her like she has to stop and kind of marvel at this structure that she's seeing.
Right.
Um, and she does talk about being in some nobility's homes while she worked in the underworld thieving, but that's mostly at night. She's not really seeing things, and
Yeah.
now everything's glistening. And so uh, again, just kind of reaffirming where she came from. So Kelsier and Renault go off. Kelsier asks Says to sit with Vin while they go off. Vin thinks that's so uh, Vin doesn't try to sneak up on him and eavesdrop again.
Right.
And Finn's basically sitting there. She again tucks her feet up beneath her in this big room that she's hanging out in. And she realizes that like Kelsier has been showing her all this respect and making her feel too important. And she's starting to kind of feel like she deserved to be a part of this and deserved to be part of the group and that she should hold these secrets. She's going back to the Reen and like in her head,
Mm-hmm.
like all those things that he taught her are coming back to her, and she's kind of feeling ashamed about herself. So servants are bringing her food. She's eating, won't drink the wine, won't drink anything. She's scared to do that, but she's not going to pass up food. Food is obviously something that's been hard to come by for her in her life. So she's eating the fruits. As we see a little later, she's throwing like wrapping bread up and putting stuff in her pockets for later. But as she's sitting here, she's feeling very uncomfortable in this spotless surroundings, and she feels like she's dirtying, like she's the problem, if that makes sense. Like she's what's standing out in this area.
Black spot and a clean red.
Yeah. And so she eventually like Says is just kind of standing there, like kind of back behind her, off to the side, and she finally tells him like, "Hey, can you like not stand there?" And he like takes a couple steps forward so he's directly next to her, and she's kind of like, "This fucking smug prick," like. And he kind of looks down at her and smirks, and it's clearly a joke. And she's like, "I didn't know Terraceman had like any kind of sense of humor." And he's like, "Well, I didn't know. I thought you didn't know any Terraceman." And she goes, "Well, I don't. So I guess I've never heard of you having a sense of humor." Um, so that I thought it was pretty funny. And we get where she's asking Says like, how did he end up here? And like, there's a lot of underlying tone with that, and she doesn't know how he's gonna take it. And he immediately is like, "Oh, how did I end up as part of the rebellion?" And then like she was kind of like, oh yeah, like okay, he knows what's going on. He's not just clearly a servant. Like
Right.
he's definitely in on this. So then they get into beliefs, and he's like, "What do you believe?" And she doesn't really know. He's talking about the Lord Ruler and asking her, like, is the Lord Ruler, is he the ascended avatar of God?
Mm.
And do you believe, just like the ministry teaches, that he is a sliver of infinity?
Yeah.
So some highlighted, capitalized terms here to kind of keep in the back of our heads, I think, for future. And she's kind of just like, she's having these kind of almost theoretical conversations, something that I think Hammond or Ham would have, like these kind
Mm-hmm.
of high thought discussions
Oh
that
yeah.
she has probably never had a lot of time for, because when you're living every day, where's my next meal going to come from? How am I going to survive? Like, you don't have time to just sit down and be like, is all this information that I'm getting that from the government just a lie? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if
Right.
if you're subjugated and kept down, there's a reason for that, and they want to keep you away from those kind of
Uninformed.
thoughts,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
uninformed.
Totally.
And I think this definitely displays or does a good job of putting that into perspective.
Right. Yeah.
And
I agree.
they kind of wrap this up, and then Kelsey and Renault are back, and they're like, well, what are we going to do with this girl? We like really need an heir for me that is a male cousin, because like
Mm-hmm.
that would make more sense in these circles, and she's not going to make sense. But then they come up with this plan that if she is my like if she's basically a distant cousin or a distant niece, someone in the family that I'm basically bringing with me to the capital to maybe I'm trying to marry her off, kind of
Mm.
make some connections to other families. Like, she's not going to be as scrutinized in those situations, and she'll have more freedom
Yeah.
to
Right.
to go do what she needs to do to kind of spy for the group, as opposed to if she was supposed to be the heir. It's going to cause lots of questions. People are going to start digging into her history. It might not be so good. Um, and so they kind of that's what they kind of decide. Kelsier's definitely in, and Vin is definitely nervous about the plan. And Renew's like, she's going to need to be refined. Like, she, not just her appearance, just she's going to need a lot of training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so Kelsier decides, hey, like, I'm going to use Say's. He's obviously been this, like,
Steward.
as we talked about, like yeah, steward, butler, and he knows how to act in these social settings, and he clearly knows kind of how the higher society works. And so he is now going to basically be Vin's mentor and kind of school her up on how to get this done right. And so they all agree to that. And so then next thing you know, they're off to their rooms. We get, I mean, just kind of some conversation between Vin and Kelsey. I don't think it was really anything that I wanted to note on. But she did say, Kelsey, I guess, well, maybe I should talk about this. So Kelsey and Renault, when they went off, Kelsey was talking about how, like, Vin, I assure you, like, we weren't talking about you. I had some personal business with him we needed to discuss.
Mm.
And so he, like, basically, you need to trust me. Like, everything's still okay. And Vin is kind of pretty open and kind of maybe a little trusting here, saying that she believes him, which I think is kind of big. We're finally, hopefully, seeing some first little tinges of trust between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the two of them kind of part ways. Kelsier goes down to the men's portion of this manor. Says shows Vin to her room, and as he's leaving, Vin's just like, "Hey, Kelsier, he's a good man, isn't he?" And Says smiles, and he's like, "He's a very good man, one of the best I've known." And Vin kind of takes that in stride and lets the door shut, and that's it, man. The end of part one, end of chapter 8, end of
Yeah.
wrapping it up.
Yeah. Next part. Next part is
Rebels beneath a sky of ash.
some more Ash. Love it. Oh man, great part. I mean, great recap, and just I think really like satisfying end to a part for me. We've got some kind of new stuff to look forward to. We want to see like how this plan's gonna go, and um, I just really like how it ends with Vin kind of shutting the door, almost on like it's in a symbolic way of just like on her past life, and she's kind of in with this team, and she's trying to trust again, and she's interested in changing, and she's like on board with this plan. She's gonna become refined, and there's a great exchange at the end there where Kelser's like, oh, like she's not very refined because of where she came from, and no offense, Vin, and Vin's like, why would I be offended? And he just like smiles and moves on. Like he's just like, she doesn't get it, she's not understanding. So I just love that, and I love getting these introductions to see Renew and to see Sazed. Just some more characters to add to our list. So yeah, how are you feeling? Part 1 Mistborn. We've reached a milestone. A little one. 8
big.
chapters.
Pretty big.
But we've been working on it.
How many parts are in the book? 2 or 3, 4?
Pretty sure at least 3. I know that. Hold on, I'm looking for a. I don't want you to have to see a chapter list. Oh brother, where is it? Here we go. No, 5. There's 5 parts, and an epilogue. So yeah, just not too far. I mean, it goes 37 pages in mine, and then part 2 ends at 189, or maybe that's when it starts. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of different ones. Some great names on these parts.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it was as far as like an introductory to the world. I think we got a good like at the beginning. You're in the fields. You're with the sky. You're working on the plantation. You're in their like shacks, like their huts that they're living in, and there's all these things about, the mist, and they're scared of this mist, and who's this traveler that's among us, and what are mist wraiths, and why do we hate the nobility so much? And it's just, there was definitely a lot, especially in those first, like the prologue, the first couple of chapters, a lot of like questions, of course. And we still have questions. I think we're getting questions every chapter, but I feel like we were able to get enough answers in this part of the book, in part 1, to some of those bigger questions that helped us build the world, help us understand kind of why people are fighting, why is there a rebellion, and while we might not know who this Lord Ruler is, what his deal is, how is he really staying in power? Like, we're still, I feel like, getting enough info to kind of satiate our hunger for the questions that we have, and set us up for kind of future questions. And like, I don't know, it was just the right amount of everything for me.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah, good amount of action.
Like I just rambled there, but
oh no, it was good. I think I was with you, man. Like, there's a lot of that going on, and I think that what I liked the best about what he said was the world building, and kind of how he builds it with you as you like. He leaves those big questions. It's like, what's that about? What's that about? But we're at the end of part 1, and I feel like we know a lot. We've gained a lot of information, and so it kind of sets the stage, I think, for a good story to go from here, which is cool. Yeah. So, well, awesome. I mean, what'd you think about just like the rest of the chapter? What's your take on like the magic system? What's your vibe on that so far?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I feel like in other fantasy, you see a lot of magic where it's like, you're just magic because you are. Like, you are like born with it. And while these people are born with these abilities, and I guess in some ways, like, if you accidentally get some pewter into your system because you drink from a pewter cup, yeah, you can use that. But to have it where it's like, oh yeah, to really, I feel like, use the magic in a meaningful or effective way, you have to like consume these metals, like,
Mm,
and like there's this consumable element that isn't necessarily, I feel like, seen in some of the other things that I've read or watched.
right.
So it's just different and interesting, and I can see in the future how that's going to cause all kinds of problems of like you run out when you're in the middle of a
Mm,
fight, or
mm-hmm.
you really just like the mines are shut down and we can't get a hold of the whatever alloy we need to make this metal, so now we have
Right.
to use a less pure version, which is going to make me sick when I use it, but I still need to use it because we have to finish this mission. Like, I just, it's going to, I think, cause a lot of headaches, which is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
um
Yeah, that's a new factor to it. Absolutely. I mean, like we talked about like Wheel of Time before, and how in Wheel of Time when they're talking about the magic and stuff, like people like have they can fight and they can go for like a period of time, but I never really had an idea of like how much more they had left. And then it was like, oh well, they just kept going, and I was like, cool, like that's awesome, but I just get a very tangible feel with this magic system of like we just took that vial and that's the metals that we have right now, and we gotta burn them before we go to bed, and like stuff like that. I really like that, and it really, yeah, it brings this kind of gritty and physical like feel to the magic, which is really fun, and yeah, I think a great part. One of the things I love about Mistborn, um, yeah, Mistborn writing in this sphere that we're on here, pretty cool.
yeah, absolutely. For you, I guess, what is like, I mean, I know you can't tell me about what is
Hmm.
coming up, but are
Hmm.
you at least excited about this next part of the book? Like,
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
y-
I am. Sorry, oh sorry, I'll let you finish.
no, you're good. No, that's the question.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think one of the exciting things is just being able to see you go through the story, and I'm excited for the next steps and how the story builds. But I'm also just from a nostalgic perspective, it's been really fun to kind of like relive those first couple pushes and pulls. Out in the city at night, and there's just a long story to go, and so like a lot happens, and it's been a really long time since I've read this, so like it's kind of just fun to see it again, and to catch, yeah, references and names of people, and when I see Sazed, and I'm like, oh, this is like where when we meet this character,
Yeah,
um and like certain characters like stick better in my head than others, and it's like really refreshing to just get to meet him again for the first time. So yeah, I really like it,
right.
and yeah, I'm happy to be here. This is great.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guiding me through. This has been, I think, a good introductory to the book. I'm super still into it. Very excited to read on. So, thanks
Nice,
for doing this with me. It's a lot of fun.
absolutely, absolutely, Kyle. Well, yeah, it's been a blast, and yeah, keep it up. I think you get a good head on your shoulders. You got good questions though. You're thinking, and I like it. It's fun to watch you read it for the first time. I think you're like catching on to certain things like quicker than I did, and like you're asking great questions, and so um,
Well, I think
keep that
sometimes you,
spirit.
sometimes you, at least for me, like, I mean, I can certainly ask those questions as I'm reading and or have those thoughts, but I think the magic, and maybe if I think maybe I even talked about this already once, but it's worth
Mm-hmm.
bringing up again. Is just
Mm-hmm.
that like as we go through it again together, um, and we're having the discussion, and I'm kind of going back through things that I've highlighted or underlined in the book, um, it's given me a second read through, which like normally when I read something, it's like obviously a one and done. I don't go back and reread it, and so
Right.
you kind of miss things and you don't critically analyze things as much. And so this is giving me that opportunity. And I don't know if some of these questions that I'm bringing up, so whether it's like philosophical or, tying two parts of the book together, saying, oh, like I think this might lead back to Kelsier's wife and whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if we didn't sit here and do this and like go through the chapter and recap it together, and that I would maybe even have ever had those thoughts. So it's kind of fun and definitely rewarding to be able to do this. And I just feel like, it's letting me delve more into this world and have a better understanding of what's going on and a better connection to the material, which is super cool, and I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, hell yeah. I love it. Well said. Well, it's that time. We like to thank our fans here. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe. Smash that button like it's going out of style. Whack-a-moles.
Yeah.
Or don't, just come back next week. It's cool. We'll be here.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, happy to have anyone willing to listen. Moms, thanks.
Love our moms.
Yep.
We love our moms.
Love our moms. We appreciate our dads.
Appreciate our dads, and we love our moms. Shout out to moms.
Shout out to moms.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We appreciate you, and wrapping up chapter 8, part 1 of the book, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.
Shards and Shenanigans. All right, and cut.